week 9 of the fantasy basketball season. And here's a few centers you don't want on your roster this week. The first guy's Alex Len of the Washington Wizards. Last week he was in recommended add at the center position, but now all of a sudden the Wizards, they're just not playing this guy for whatever reason the last 2 games, and they're 2-0 since they benched him from Ortiz Wagner. So Len on the season, he's already been on the Toronto Raptors. Then he signed with the Wizards a few weeks ago. On the season, he's ranked 257 in fantasy basketball, 5.8 points a game, 3.3 rebounds, 1 assist a game, 62% from the foul line, and 62% from the field. And he was playing decent in the last 2 weeks. He was ranked number 87 with 9 points a game, 4.5 rebounds, 1.4 assists, 2 blocks a game, 68% from the field, and 78% from the line in the last 2 weeks. But now they've DMP'd him the last 2 nights here is the Washington Wizards. And like I said, they've won the games, and Wagner has played good. So Len, he's putting up good numbers. He was starting at center for this team. But now Washington, they're going another way. And I think the big man like Len is pretty much extinct in the NBA. He don't shoot threes, obviously. He's not going to start now, I believe, up there in age. And the Wizards, they wanted to spread the floor more with Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook in that lineup with more shooters around him. And Len, he's just a guy that's going to clog the paint. And he's not a huge scorer or rebounder like he used to be the last couple seasons. So his game's definitely declined. And the Wizards at this point, they just picked him up as a depth piece, it looks like. And if he was on your fantasy roster after a lot of people went out there and got him, he's definitely droppable. The next center to drop this week's Daniel Theis of the Boston Celtics. He's been on the list a few times this season, and he's been inconsistent. Theis 1 week he's great, the next he's not. And on the season, he's ranked 123 in fantasy basketball, 9.3 points a game, 5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 1 block a game, 68% from the foul line, 57% from the field, and 0.9 threes a game he's hitting. But the last few games, his numbers have been mediocre. February 11th versus Toronto, 8 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 4 blocks. He gave you a good all-around game there. And February 12th versus Detroit, 11 points, 9 rebounds, an assist, steal, a block. And then February 14th at Washington, 4 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. He's up and down. He's playing anywhere from 25 to 30 minutes a game, is Theis. But he's a guy I just can't trust. He'll have great games, and then he'll have games where he don't show up, and he's just too inconsistent for my being here is Theis. So 10 and 12 team leagues, you definitely drop him. He's been dropped so far this week in 4% of fantasy leagues. He's still owned in 53, but he's just not consistent enough. I think you could find more options on the waiver wire with better numbers. So I would look to drop Theis in the third and final center. I would look to drop this week's Naz Reid of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Naz Reid, he was on a great run for the last month, but now with Karl-Anthony Towns finally back in the lineup over the last 2 or 3 games, Reid, his numbers have dropped. On the season, he was ranked 105, 12.4 points a game, 4.9 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 1.2 blocks for Reid. But now over the last week, he's ranked 191 with 10.7 points a game, 3 rebounds, 1.7 assists, 66% from the foul line, and 52% from the field. And since Karl-Anthony Towns returned, his numbers have pretty much been pedestrian except 1 game, February 8th at Dallas. Only 6 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal in 21 minutes. Then February 10th versus the Clippers, he played 20 minutes, 23 points, 3 rebounds, a steal, 2 blocks, and 2 threes. And he shot 69% from the field. Then at Charlotte, February 12th, 16 minutes of play, 7 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. And then at Toronto, 2 nights ago, 14 minutes of play, 2 points, 2 rebounds, and assists. And Naz Reid, he could obviously be dropped on the wire. He's not producing numbers. Karl-Anthony Towns is back, and now he's relegated to the bench for a 15 to 20 minute role a night. But hey, if Towns goes down again, then obviously you rush out there and pick up Naz Reid, because now we've seen over the last 2 seasons a good sample size of what he could do when he gets playing time. And when Karl Anthony Towns is out of the lineup last season towards the end of the year, we saw some monster numbers and monster games from him. And we saw the last few weeks and even early in the season when Towns was out with the dislocated wrist, he was a solid player for the Timberwolves and fantasy owners. But right now, he's obviously droppable, and he's been dropped in 10% of leagues so far this week, and he's only owned in 24, so that's a few centers I would drop here in Week 9 of the fantasy basketball season.